Hi everyone, thank you for joining my channel today, True Crime Astrology. Today I'm doing rectification of Nick Reiner's natal chart. So if you saw my last video that I did for him, I think it was a couple days before Christmas, I did not have an accurate birth time for him. Still to this day, there's no, I don't think, public knowledge about an accurate birth time. So at that time, I put the birth time at 12 p.m. as is custom to do for celebrities when you don't know the birth time. And I did theorize in that video that I thought that that time could be a good fit for him based on the rising sign plus some of the houses that his planets were in. But when I was playing with some of his progressions, I started to feel like 12 o'clock really was not a good time at all. So this is the new time that I've come up with, 7 a.m. On September 14th, 1993. Um, so I'm going to take you guys through the progressions that I've done that led me to believe that this is perhaps a more accurate birth time for Nick. Keep in mind, we still have no verified outside source saying that this is correct. This is just based on my professional opinion, um, and the interpretations and my having done some of the progressions that I'm going to share with you guys. Now, if you're just really interested in hearing about his natal chart and you don't really want to see the progressions, I'll leave the time in the description below of when I do start to interpret this so you can just skip to that. But I will say there's a lot of really interesting information that pops up in terms of the progressions that I looked at. And so the first one that I'm going to do is the time of his parents' murder. So from what I'm reading, they're saying that his parents were murdered at approximately 3:45 a.m. on December 14th, 2025. So I apologize as well. I was trying not to do quad wheels, not to overwhelm people, but there's a lot that I need to mention with not only the progressed moon in his secondary progressions, also the solar arc moon. So I think it just makes the most sense to do a quad wheel. So I'm sorry if the numbers are looking really tiny. I will take you guys through this step by step. And I'm not going to go over the entire thing. I'm just going to point out what is going on with the progressed moon, solar arc moon, and transiting moon at this time. So his progressed moon is at 12 degrees of Scorpio here. And this is making a trine to transiting North Node at 13 degrees Pisces. So, what this means is that he is easily falling into his life path based on his actions. Now, keep in mind that his mother's sun is also at 12 degrees of Pisces, and North Node was on her sun when she died. So that makes it even more fascinating. It's like this was an exit point for his mother, and it was almost like a sacrifice for her to end her life for Nick to achieve his North Node somehow on a subconscious level. And this could be a pretty harmonious aspect, Moon trine transiting North Node. So this could mean, again, this is leading to an opportunity for someone to, open some doors, to really find a new way to live out their purpose. But in this case, I don't think that was a good thing. I think that this just opened up a door for him to get in trouble, incriminate himself, and so on and so forth. Now, his solar arc moon here is at 1 degree Libra, and this is making a trine to transiting Pluto at 2 degrees Aquarius. So that tells me that he could have really taken a risk and rolled the dice towards something big happening at this time. Transiting Moon is at 29, or sorry, transiting Mars is at 29 Sag. And now this is making a trine to his natal moon at 29 Leo. So he could have really been quick to anger here. You can't see it on the quad wheel, but his ascendant in his secondary progressions is at 22 Libra, and transiting moon happens to be at 22 Libra. And this is making a lot of aspects. So the transiting moon at 22 Libra is making a sextile to progressed, I'm sorry, to transiting sun, which, by the way, is making a square to his sun. And then transiting moon is making a square to transiting Jupiter, and it's making an opposition to transiting Chiron. And then Nick's natal Mars at 21 Libra is going to be sitting on this progressed ascendant, and it's also going to be sitting on this transiting moon. So there's a lot getting lit up here in this chart. There's a lot getting lit up with the transiting moon, and this is all hitting his progressed ascendant, as is his natal Mars. So all this is happening at the time of roughly around the time of his parents' murder. So I'm now going to take you guys through the progressions and the transits for the second event, which is when Nick's film premiered at the Toronto Film Festival. So I think that's a pretty major event for him. So this is September 14th, which happens to be his birthday in 2015. I don't have an exact time because I'm assuming this was an all-day event, and I'm not going to bring up the transiting moon anyway for this. So the first thing is that here his progressed moon is at 17 degrees of Gemini. This is making a trine to his natal Jupiter at 17 Libra. So what this tells me is that Nick went into this event with optimism, with high hopes. He really might have thought that this would be great. But this progressed moon is making an inconjunct to Neptune conjunct Uranus, which is now in his fourth house of home and family. So what this could mean is that even though he went into this event very optimistic and enthusiastic, he was getting different information and feedback from his family, that, perhaps they were warning him not to get his hopes up, they were dampening his spirits about the film, so on and so forth. His solar arc moon is at 21 Virgo, so this is conjunct his natal moon or his natal sun at 21 Virgo. And so again, this is a good aspect. This could tell me that Nick wants connection at this time. He has hopes for new relationships and for really making a name for himself. But Saturn is at 29 Scorpio, transiting Saturn, I should say, is at 29 Scorpio. And this is going to be making a square to his natal moon at 29 Leo. So this provides further information that his father perhaps was not happy with him in some way. He could have been criticizing Nick, or there were film critics, for instance, that were starting to talk negatively about the film. So it's really a shame because as much as Nick had high hopes for the movie, for connecting with others around it, I don't know that he was able to get all that he wished for, and he may have started to feel like a failure. And so I'll take you through the transits now let me just erase this, for when um, his movie premiered worldwide, and we'll see even more how he, I think, felt even more and more like a failure somehow. Keep in mind, I don't really know much about the film. I've never seen it, so This is just what I'm picking up from the transits. So, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Okay. So this is May 6, 2016, the date when his film premiered worldwide. Again, I don't have a specific time for him, so I'm not going to go over transiting moon. But his progressed moon is at 25 Gemini. So this is sitting right on his midheaven, and it's going to be crossing over that angle into his 10th house. So this would mean that he's definitely getting noticed now. He's getting recognition as a director. I don't know what his role was on the film, but something is going to be shifting for him in terms of how he is seen in the public eye, basically. Could be career. Now, um, this progressed moon at 25 Gemini, it is unfortunately making a square to transiting Chiron at 24 Pisces. So this leads me to believe again that he's not getting, this is not necessarily a good time for him. His old wounds are getting dredged up, actually. There's something going on with self-esteem, and he's not feeling great about himself. His progressed moon is also making a trine to progressed and natal Saturn. So he's getting easy information in some way from his father or from critics, that's wounding his self-esteem, his confidence. And then his Mercury is at 21 Taurus, or sorry, not his Mercury, transiting Mercury is at 21 Taurus. This is making a pretty nice trine to his solar arc moon, which is still at 21 Virgo, as well as natal sun at 21 Virgo. However, this transiting Mercury is also unfortunately making a square to his natal Venus, at 21 Leo. So again, what this tells me is that he's getting communication and feedback in this easy, kind of a seamless way. He doesn't have to really go far or reach for it to get it. The feedback is coming back to him in a very simple, easy format, but it's not necessarily the feedback he wants. This is not the information that he wants to hear because the Mercury is making the square to Venus. A couple of other things that I think are really interesting and worth pointing out are that transiting Mars is at 6 degrees of Sag here, and this is making a conjunction to Nick's natal North Node. So this could mean that action is being taken to give way to his direction in life. Unfortunately, if he got negative criticism or feedback about the film, I could imagine that what happened is that he felt even more like a failure, which could have triggered him to escape his reality by getting lost in his addictions even more. So that could have been the door, the path that opened up for him. And then adding to this, transiting Pluto is at 17 degrees of Capricorn. This is sitting on his Neptune-Uranus conjunction. And so this would mean, or it could mean, that basically his dreams and his hopes for change are being crushed. Whatever fantasy he had about himself and his film, it's getting dissolved in a big way because this is also making a trine to natal Jupiter. So, in a nutshell, what I'm surmising from his progressions, especially having to do with the film, are that he really had high hopes, but he did get a lot of criticism. It did not turn out as he had exactly hoped. And that kind of triggered the wounds for him, self-esteem, making him feel more like a failure, and that could have led him down a more self-destructive path. So let's get into his natal chart now. And keep in mind, a lot of what I already discussed in my other video of his chart remains true when it comes to his aspects. So for instance, he still has Venus and Moon opposing Saturn. He still has Mars conjunct Jupiter. This is still making a square to Neptune, Uranus. The Sun is still making a trine to Neptune, Uranus. The Moon is still conjunct Chiron. So a lot of what I mentioned about these aspects in my first video is going to remain the case. If you didn't watch my first video and you want to know more about those aspects, definitely check those out because they are really important in understanding who Nick is and some of the problems he had with his parents. One of the main things that is different here is that Moon is at 29 Leo. It's no longer in Virgo. So this is now making a square to his natal Pluto. And this is a pretty rough aspect. This could attribute to Nick feeling his emotions quite deeply. And his moon, it's showing up here in the 11th house, but it's really kind of on the cusp of both the 12th and the 11th houses. So we could say it's in both houses. When someone has their moon in the 12th house, this is a Pisces house, so they're really going to be feeling things. They're going to get quite overwhelmed actually by their emotions and the emotions of other people. Pluto making a square to Moon, this could show up as power struggles with his mother. You know, he already has Moon conjunct Chiron. Um, and it could point to an intense environment that he grew up in. This could mean he has a really difficult time trusting others, being vulnerable. So he's going to feel a strong need to protect himself emotionally. I know when I did his chart originally, I did think Scorpio rising could have been a good fit for him. What I think I was picking up on now was this Pluto square moon energy that he gives off, perhaps. So he has Chiron, part of fortune, and his sun showing up in his 12th house. Again, his moon, technically, it's 29 Leo, so his 11th house starts at 28 Leo, so it's technically in the 11th house. But what I would say is that because it's really on the cusp, it could be relevant in both houses. So he has all this energy in his 12th house. And while this means that he feels his emotions deeply, he probably does not easily express them. So this is someone who may want to spend a lot of time in isolation, and he really has a need to remain private and spend time in solitude. The great thing about having personal planets in the 12th house is that someone could become a wonderful artist or healer of some sorts, but the downside is that one could easily lose themselves. So this is the 12th house. There's a very thin boundary between reality and the dream world. And while this could mean meditation and spirituality for some, I think for Nick it meant drugs and addictions, and that is how he chose to escape and where he wanted to spend a lot of his time. Now his sun is on the ascendant in this chart. And so I think this overturns some of what he wanted in terms of privacy because with the sun rising in your chart, it's like you're almost under a microscope. And he had big shoes to fill in terms of his father. Everyone was watching him, especially when he made that film with his father. Sun on the ascendant is also a little bit like what you see is what you get. So that reminds me again of the film he did, which was basically based on his lifestyle, from what I know, based on his addictions and stuff like that. Another thing about the 12th house is that although it's considered a hidden house, people with planets in the 12th house could go viral. So, interestingly, there are many celebrities and politicians with planets in the 12th house. And this is because things can get away from you when you do something, it echoes out into the world. And the 12th house, again, it's a Pisces house, so there's a very, very thin boundary between you and everybody else. So your actions tend to have this reverberating effect out into the world. Another thing I think is fascinating looking at this birth time is that he has a lot of planets either on the cusp or like a couple of degrees or even 1 degree away from a house cusp. So Pluto, for instance, is directly on the second and third house cusp. He has the Saturn a couple degrees away from sixth house cusp. Like I talked about, the moon is 1 degree away from 12th house. And then we have the sun and then Mars, which is 1 degree away from the second house cusp. So when I see somebody's chart that has planets on the cusp or really close to the cusp of houses, it makes me think of wanting to cross the line in life. Like this symbolizes that someone is ready to take a step into another house, into a new way of being. They're willing to go out of bounds and make change. So this is basically someone who is willing to take a risk and cross the line with this chart. Some of the stuff I mentioned in my last video around the houses could still apply to this chart. So he does have Venus, technically his moon, in his 11th house now, and he had Mars and Jupiter in his 11th house before. So I talked about the fact that Nick is drawn towards the unconventional. He has strong beliefs in 11th house stuff. So with his Venus and with Mars in the 11th house, this would still mean that he is drawn towards what's different. He doesn't want the same old thing that everyone else is doing. He wants something different, something new, and something radical. You know, normal is not in his wheelhouse. It's not what's going to work for him. It's not what he wants. And then he no longer has Venus in his ninth house, but he does have his south node in his ninth house. And the south node is what we know really, really well, and it's what we cling on to in this lifetime. So his south node in Gemini in the ninth would tell me that he wants the freedom to question belief systems. He's really comfortable with being on this quest to find what works for him, what he believes in, and he does not want to be tied down or restricted to one large belief system. He wants a million different options. This also, because it's in Gemini, leads me to believe or wonder whether he did a lot of talking about or philosophizing about different ways of believing or thinking, but he wasn't really putting into practice for himself any of those ways of believing or thinking. What he needs to do is get to North Node in Sag, which is all about finding his own kind of way of thinking, believing that really works with him, that speaks to his experience. And he needs to teach and convey that to others in a community. So he needs a new community with North Node showing up in the third house here. And again, he may have the chance to do that in prison or in an institution if he does get, you know, sentenced and is found guilty. So, um, you know, he really may have the opportunity at this point to get sober, to really find one main belief system that really speaks to him. And he has an opportunity to convey his life lessons to people in this new community that he's going to become a part of. Keep in mind also that with all this 12th house energy, the 12th house is partly about institutions. So it could be, hospitals, jails, prisons. So that's just interesting that he has a lot of energy that shows up in this house. So that is my interpretation of the new natal time, the progressions that led me to believe this could be a good birth time for him and much more accurate. Again, I will stress this is my opinion. These are my interpretations. None of this is based in actual verified fact. So, no one is saying, yes, he was born at 7 a.m. This is based on what I have discovered in my own progressions that I shared with you guys. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have questions. I really love interacting and engaging with everybody who is commenting on my videos, and I'm really so grateful for all the support. So stay tuned for my next video, and thank you so much for watching.